Right. Welcome to On My Block Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Wall, along with Packers all-time leading rusher, Amon Green. We are coming to you every single week, including Packers preseason here, where, I'll be honest with you guys, preseason's great. I mean, listen, there's so many kind of segments that you go to, especially as a fan. There's so many things you kind of go through and building up to the preseason. To the regular season, and you have to go through these gates, right? So right now in the NFL, you got to go through, I think, 4 practices before you get in shoulder pads. I think you have to get in top pads first, so you can get in full pads later. There's only 11 or 13 amount of actually padded practices during the preseason. It's just, life is so much different. I don't necessarily know that it's better or worse. I know that players can play longer because of it, but it's something that we all have to at least discuss and talk about because, quite frankly, we don't get too much else to talk about during this time of the year. There's not a lot going on in the rest of the sports world, so let's talk some preseason. But first, thanks to our sponsors, BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, esports, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting your favorite casino and card games, available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get into the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, I think we talk about this probably every season, is the defense. Like, listen, the problem is we've been a little bit spoiled in Green Bay because you've always had really good offensive Hall of Fame quarterbacks, all-pro wide receivers, offensive line play, running backs, etc. And so we've always done pretty well in the preseason against our own defense. In fact, I can't remember, honestly, a year, maybe my first year in the league where everybody was kicking my backside. But that was maybe the only year where I thought, oh man, these guys, the defense might be as good as the offense, which probably wasn't the case. But defense, you just have to understand, it's not that defense is easier. It's that you always hear that 11 players have to make the play work on offense and one player can disrupt the game on defense. There's some truth to that. I mean, the continuity on offense, one person make a mistake can ruin a play. The same can really happen. You miss a gap on defense, you can ruin a play as well. But it's just, there doesn't need to be that cohesiveness. Plays are literally a little bit simpler. It's, on defense, you have a play that you're going to run. You line up versus certain formations. You line up. Your front has a certain lineup. Your linebackers are responsible for gaps. Your safeties have rotations and coverages based on what they see. But after that, you're just kind of playing ball. Whereas on offense, it is a little bit of a dance. It's a little bit of a nuanced dance. You have a couple different options at different positions. Line, for example, you have initial footwork that's going to change slightly depending on where your linebacker is, where your defensive tackle or defensive end is. The running back is going to take the exact same footwork at the beginning of each outside zone, inside zone, mid zone, regardless of what the defense is lined up in. Like, you're always going to take that initial forward, then you start playing ball. Wide receiver is going to have different ways to exit the line of scrimmage depending on if they're pressed up or if they're open release, what the coverage looks like later on. And so there's a lot of kind of moving after the ball and things that have to happen. But that initial first couple of moments, there's not a lot going on that you don't already know about. And so I don't know if from a player standpoint, just because it sounds like, and we're not privy to a lot of action, I think, as far as the sideline view on the Green Bay Packers yet, but it sounds like the defense is doing quite well. You expect them to do quite well because why? They got 7 or 8 first-round draft picks, and from a talent standpoint, they should be better than our offense, especially when you don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. You have young receivers. You have two first day or second day picks at tight end that are first-year players. Really excited about both those guys, by the way. It just takes time. Timing in the passing game takes time. Timing in the running game takes time. Continuity, learning the amount of the sheer. I mean, if you saw what was in a playbook, if you put playbooks into paper or on what's on this iPad, as far as how many different variations of the same offensive play or scheme are going on and all the different calls. I was just privy to an offense, not the Green Bay Packers. I was just looking through another playbook recently, and the way that they even count the linebackers, or they count in the run game who's going to be the Mike, who the offensive line's going to, is completely different. It's intuitive. They count from the sideline in. It's completely different than anything we ever did. And, if all the words start with W, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. If they all start with Y, T, R, you're not grouping them like that. So just from like the center standpoint, if you've got a young center and the amount of stuff that person has to know and do their job against a guy who's probably a better athlete than them. I mean, we always talk about quarterback being the hardest position in sports. And I think to some extent, from a mental processing standpoint, that has to be true. But don't ever think that the one-on-one confrontations that you're allowed to, that you're privy to in the National Football League or any other sport, but you're privy to. Here comes Amon. What's up, Amon?
Man, what's up, Mike? How you doing?
Nothing, man. I was just saying, we talk about the defense is probably winning early right now, but when you think about quarterback being the most difficult position in sports, and from a mental processing standpoint, it's hard to argue. Yes. But the one-on-one matchups that the offensive center has to deal with, a tight end, a running back, a wide receiver, any player on offense that has to deal with, as far as what you see, how that's going to affect kind of the initial part of the play, right? Mm-hmm. All the different calls and scenarios, the switches, the verbal cues, the audio cues, or visual cues, that you can have before the snap. And then having to go against this guy who 9 times out of 10, at least in our case, was a better athlete than we were. I mean, that's a very, very tall order, and it takes a while to get that all together. 11 players working on the same thing.
Yeah, it's all about catching up to that pace of everybody. You're been training all off season, either with the group and y'all been doing certain things, but never 100% full contact. It's never to the ground. It's just a quick hand here or there, maybe running and then running. Wide receivers running routes, they're up pretty much up the whole time. When I mean up, they're not on the ground unless they, really getting.
They're not taking shots. So
exactly. Not taking shots or not getting shot at, basically. So now, though, once camp starts up, mini camp too, same thing. You're all in t-shirts and a helmet and a hat these days. There's no physicality to it, but there's technique working and understanding that eventually, okay, this is what's going to happen when I go full speed, when I'm making this block, when I'm making this angle of a cut, or I got to make sure my pad level is at a certain level. So if somebody's going to hit me, I could ping pong off of them and they hit me up instead of taking all that brunt of the hit and I'm absorbing all of it. I'm kind of ricocheting off of them so I don't, feel that hit later on in the practice. So that was like a mindset that I had, learning how to fall in and out of contact and making sure that I felt that full effect of like, all right, this is what it's going to feel like come August or July once training camp got there.
So AG, explain to us what the difference is. I guess maybe most importantly, because this is what we care about, because today's like the first day of pads for a lot of teams. You have to go through this 3-day process, and then you put shoulder pads on, then you put full pads on.
Right.
Explain to us what the difference is for players in intensity level or in preparation and thought process when we think about training camp in general on a padded day versus a non-padded day.
The mindset is basically, okay, we're now full tilt. Is live shots going to happen. Live bullets are shooting. Everybody's firing. So you got to be ready for that. And then going down to your basics of your footwork technique for y'all, your position, the O-line, and how y'all set and all that now. Because now it's going to be setting and embracing for impact now. A little bit more impact than it was during minicamp, prior to that. So now you got to brace a little harder and stuff. Me getting the ball, running the ball downhill, then now I've got to be prepared for, coming in same foot, same shoulder to the linebacker doing the same to me, and also wrapping, maybe thudding for today. I know that'll be the pace of today is more of a thud, even though it's pads, but still my mindset, I don't care. When I hear a thud, it's contact to me. That's all that is. It's just another word for contact. It's not maybe full speed, but for me, it's contact. So I'm not going to get caught off guard running up the A gap and then a linebacker fits me up. And then I'm not full tilt, then now my shoulders hurt. It's like, no. You're not going to ever catch me doing that. I'm going to always be actively in the moment, knowing that it is thud. But when I hit you, you're going to feel it when you hit me. But it's all respect. It's all getting ready and being professional. And so if you don't have that mindset on that, then that's where guys get hurt. When guys get frustrated and they start fights because man, why are you going so fast? Or I wasn't ready for that. Man, what you not ready for, man? You knew what it was, a stud. I came in just a tad above thud, but still, what are you mad about? So it's just a lot of those mindsets going in when you have that first day of padded practice. And also the biggest thing for coaches, from a coach's standpoint, is obviously nobody wants to get hurt. He wants to keep everybody healthy.
Right.
Little stuff would pop up here and there, but nothing dramatic. But just getting ready, get that first day out the way, be like, okay, here we go. Then everybody kind of starts to ease into everything.
Yeah, there's a few things there. I mean, certainly, I think for offensive and defensive linemen, except for we can't cut on the backside, everything else is live for us. I mean, linebackers, everything else was live. I mean, the tackling wasn't live, for you guys, and wide receivers certainly were probably getting butted up more than they probably the biggest beneficiaries of thud not tackling. Mm-hmm. When you say, it's interesting about when you say when you start talking about injuries, because obviously for players aren't thinking about it. Well, I shouldn't say this now. Back in the day in Green Bay, players were worried about not being like worn out for the next preseason game, whenever they actually had to perform on camera.
Yeah.
That's what guys are kind of thinking about. They're like, all right, when am I going to have to perform on camera? Now we're trying to get better during the training camps and we're trying to do all that. But guys are really kind of have that in the back of their mind. In Green Bay, we're lucky. The weather's not that bad. We practice extremely hard. We have a very professional group. Guys kind of knew how to practice at a very high level without a lot of extra stuff. So we could go really, really hard. But, it's like if I knocked you to the ground, I'm not going to jump on you as well. Whereas you see some of these guys, even nowadays, there's always a little bit of tough guy to you that we didn't think we needed. We could save that for the other team. Yeah. But when I got to I remember we got to Carolina, and I was used to practicing how we practiced in Green Bay. And I got to Carolina, and they've got top defense, top box 7 in the league at the time. Correct. I remember some of the guys were like, "Bro, you don't understand. If you keep practicing like this, we're not going to make it through training camp because they don't mess around down here. They don't care about your health. They don't care about your well-being. They've got a 2.5-hour full padded practice twice a day, and that's what we're doing. And it's 100% humidity, 95 degrees outside in South Carolina." Yeah. And they just, Foxy, he was going to do it, and that's what was going to be done. And so I think around the league, it probably feels different for different people. But the thing that I took away, especially early, was like padded practices were literally just a couple more bruises on your body. You didn't really change that much, at least for us, from, listen, your footwork's always got to be right. You're going to look bad. Your hands are always going to be right. You're going to look bad. You just got to know, and we're always striking with our helmet in our hands anyways, right? So except for maybe up on the linebackers, that probably got more physical. I probably felt that a little more because we pulled so much. But the interior play, it's always especially if you're going against, I remember Corey Williams, Santana and Gilbert, obviously guys like that. I mean, we had such good guys, Billy Lyon, badass Billy Lyon. We had guys that always wanted to go out there and show and play hard, especially against our offensive line and our team that was it was pretty formidable at that time. Guys always wanted to go out there and perform well. So you always expected to win. I guess the biggest takeaway was like, you expect to win. And if you don't win, it's like, shit, what are we going to do now? You got to go back the next day and do even better.
Yeah, we got to figure it out, basically, and make those adjustments going into the next practice, basically. And the next practice was for us, it was a 2-a-day practice, so it was only a couple hours later, or it was get your 8 hours of sleep, and then now you got the next practice. Then make all your adjustments and then be ready for that and see how your body feel that next morning, stuff like that.
I think the hardest part now is, like, for me, the part that I love football, but I would have a hard time just standing this, is when, we got all this, the reporters now, and they're literally on the sidelines, and it's like, Amon slipped on an outside zone play. What does that mean? Or like somebody gets, like somebody they see kind of a player come free and they have no idea why it happened, but it's like player X came free, must have beat the right guard. You're like, well, he wasn't even over. It's just it's so bad. But if it would be hard to not let it get to you, because it's like these guys, they all read, they're all on Twitter, they all know all the personalities on ESPN and NFL Network, and when they're hearing this stuff sometimes, especially from the sideline guys who are just giving their like professional review on the play-by-play, that's like, I see it sometimes on Twitter. I'm like, man, just let it go. Like nobody can be that interested. These reps mean, for the context of the fan, the reps mean so little compared to what you're going to see on game day.
100%. And for those sideline reporters, they're just getting something so their editor doesn't snap at them when they get back to
I'm
the
not mad
office.
at him.
Hey,
It's part of the job.
yeah, it's part of their job.
Yeah.
Like I said, they're just trying to get some material down. It might jog their memory or something, or their writing ability.
Tucker Kraft got beat up a couple days ago. I think he walked off with some ice on his thigh or something. But Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. I mean, these two tight ends, they have played a significant amount of time on the field together. Now, Luke Musgrave is going to be the starting tight end. That's what it looks like. But they're on the field together in two tight end sets. They've been featured a couple times here in this preseason, enough for people to start thinking about, all right, man, what does this mean? And we've kind of already talked about what it means.
100%.
Excuse me, for our offense. But let's talk about what this means for our defense and our defensive development, particularly at a safety position. At a safety position, and maybe with Quay Walker included in that, that is in dire need of some development with Adrian Amos gone.
100%. It's having the ability, or having the tight end with the abilities these young guys have for Darnell, for the other safeties back there. It's going to give them so much experience dealing with a big guy that can move between running routes and between getting blocked by him. Because then they could, if they don't take it personal, where we know players will go and say, hey, you know what, just learn from this part. You got dominated, okay? Now go to that tight end and be like, hey, what? How did you get me there? What's your thought process blocking me as a safety smaller than you? And regardless, you're going, you got the advantage, but what is your still mindset? Use that. And so that's where it's going to be beneficial. And then also route running, because with those two big tight ends, obviously it's not a speed factor, it's a size factor covering them, because then they could body that smaller safety up. It's like getting in the paint in basketball. You got a small guy on me, throw me the high ball. So they can learn how to defend that a lot better, practicing with those young guys and say, hey, I want that. If I'm any of those safeties, especially if I'm Savage, I'm like, I'm going to the coach, tight ends coach. Give me something every day from these two. I want something every day, because this is the NFL now. We got tight ends that are this size, this aggression. The technique is there. The dynamic ability is there. So I'm going to face this when we play the 49ers. I'm going to face this when we play the Seahawks. I'm going to face this when we play the Broncos. Whoever we play, there is a tight end that's 6'6", that runs 4'6", 4'7", and then can run block. So give me all of that, because it's going to make me better at the end of the day. That's the mindset that they need to be thinking about. And that's how and then if they don't have that mindset, they're going to get bludgeoned with it, because this is going to be something. This is now a staple of this offense for Matt LaFleur, making a point to draft these two guys high for their draft picks in 2023.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. And, certainly we've seen all kinds of, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts for Atlanta, who's just a phenomenal football player. I don't know if I call him a tight end.
Yeah, he's more on the pass side of it.
But we are, and even, Dalton Kincaid, the first pick, this year, the first tight end off the board this year, he's more a receiving guy. But
Penn State, right?
There are guys, I don't recall it, EG, but there are guys, you think about the San Francisco 49ers in particular. There are teams that are beginning, Mark Andrews in the Baltimore Ravens. There are teams who have these two-way go players. We're hoping that Luke and Tucker can both be two-way go players. We're hoping that they can add that. It's just like the pendulum swings so far one way. All the passing rules come in. We start getting 4 wide receiver looks. Mm-hmm. And now defenses have smaller line. Like, it's like linebacker, what happened? Safeties got smaller. Linebackers got smaller. Everybody got smaller. So now it's like, oh, what can we do? Oh, we can run the ball again. We can make them bring 3 linebackers into the game with playing 2 tight ends that can stretch the defense. Like the chess game on a kind of a global level is changing back to maybe closer to what we're used to as a consequence of the physical size and stature of some of these defenders has changed, and therefore we need to change with the times.
100%.
Listen, what goes along with the safety talk, there was an article today that was talking about Jair Alexander and Rasul Douglas.
Oh, yeah. Good article. I know what you're talking about.
They're communicating better. And I thought it was super interesting because essentially what it said was in a nutshell, I'll paraphrase. Jay Alexander is a one-on-one defender, so he only watches tape on one-on-one players. He watches moves. Rasul Douglas is not a one-on-one defender, so he has to watch like the global tape. And so, like when I'm working with athletes, we'll talk about there's kind of a global view that you have to watch tape on, and that's what the coaches watch, right? Like, what's the personnel? What's the down and distance? What's the situation? Is it after a turnover? Is it after a punt? What is the tendency of the defensive or offensive coordinators to do during this kind of situation?
Yeah.
And then there's the local view of like, how do you beat your guy? And what we always talk about is like, you have to be able to talk global, but you've got to be able to focus on local. Like, you have to be able to do both. And it was just interesting because both these guys are pros. Jair's an exceptional pro. But it sounded like, boy, they actually they're both doing one. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. Like they got to actually come together to figure out what's going on, like whole picture.
Yeah, so now that peanut butter and chocolate is going to be a good tasting little cookie back there in the defensive backfield, because in that article, I read the same one. We're on the same page. It was like that aha moment for both of them, because Jair, being that individual guy, like you said, he doesn't. Don't give me the full film. I just want to see Justin Jefferson. I just want to see all his routes. You know, how he runs a comeback, how he runs a 2 route, a 3 route, a 9. I just want to see that. And then Rasul, like for me, that's what I did. I was more global, because then I like to see where the linebackers are shifting, or where they're at, where the DBs are at, where the safety's at. And I want to also see the safety rotation, because then I know a potential blitz where it's coming from. But then I played against, guys in our division so much, I already kind of knew what they had. It wasn't much that Brian Urlacher was going to bring to the game. You knew what he was going to do. Derek Brooks, though, that was a guy that he was a toolbox. He had everything. He could pass, he could rush, and all that stuff. So having that two people like that at that level, able to come to a common ground and say, "Hey, I know this, you know that. Let's make this work." And then we got to bounce calls, and we saw it last year because it was still in transition, trying to get there, and that's where we saw a lot of big mistakes still made. But at the end of the season, things kind of tightened up a little bit better, but they still got a lot of work to do on it.
You always talk about Derek Brooks over Brian Urlacher. Do you think? I mean, if you had both Hall of Fame players, but yes, do you like Derek better than Brian?
I like him better because he was a little bit more solid to me in terms of
solid in what way?
In physicality.
Really?
Yes. In my book,
because Urlacher outweighed him by 20 pounds.
True.
Right.
That's true.
I'm not saying that dismisses it, but that, you know what I mean. That's an interesting.
I just felt that when DB, especially when I first got here, as he got older, by 03, 04, it was different. But 01, like 2000, that guy was a thump. He's dumping. It was a headache. And not saying that Brian Urlacher was, but we knew against the Bears, we did 96 power. Oh, we gonna eat all day.
Right. No doubt.
That was one play that I knew it was going to get called, or the opposite of that, going to 97 counter we're going to eat all day. We're going to get yards, 5, 10, 15, because Brian was going to either try to cheat and run outside and then come underneath, or
he couldn't take on blocks.
Exactly. That is why I always say Derek over Urlacher, because Will Henderson was going to just be chasing Urlacher, but he's going to have to face DB, Shelton Quarles, any of those guys from the Tampa Bay defense. They were going to face him in the hole. And we weren't getting that action against the Bears, especially when, especially like 03 season, 03, 04, that was those few years where Urlacher was like, no, I don't want to deal with that.
That's interesting. I don't disagree with you at all. I was 295 pounds and I didn't look Derek Brooks as like a particularly physical guy, but I do understand what you mean as far as his block protection, his way to slip blocks, like his willingness to be physical, not necessarily meaning like he's going to try to go through me, but he's going to try to slip around, slip the hip. He was very, very good at that. Some guys are really good at that, some aren't. I always look at we always talk about Urlacher's running mate,
Lance Briggs.
Lance. And Shelton Quarles was another guy who really liked to fill the hole. Hardy back in the day liked to fill the hole.
Yes.
But Brooksy's a rare guy, right? He's a 4.4, 4.3 linebacker that was super, super smart, great leader, great human. We're getting off tangent, but I always find that interesting because I always thought Briggs was the guy. We have to talk about Urlacher. But you always, when I bring up Urlacher or something, you always bring up Brooksy.
Yeah,
and well-deserved. I'm just curious.
Right, and I didn't try to say Lance was a problem, though. Lance was a problem. He was the problem. Urlacher, he was like the offensive lineman to the running back. So the offensive lineman get all nasty and dirty, and he's clean, hitting the hole and boom, 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 making all these big plays. And then at the end of the day, Lance Briggs, everybody else is doing all the dirty work. And then
No doubt.
Urlacher becomes the Hall of Famer. It's like, hey, you got a guy called Lance Briggs that was moving people and doing a lot of work.
It's funny how Mark, it is funny how all of that works. I mean, there's obviously a whole narrative about playing middle linebacker, the Chicago Bears, but
especially down there in Chicago.
Yeah, but it is interesting, and not to take. I think Brian's first of all, I thought he was a great dude. I thought he was a great football player,
fantastic guy.
But it is interesting that Briggs isn't mentioned in the same breath, and I think for anybody who played against him, he was at least in the same breath, if not more.
Hell yeah!
Who do you think on this team? Let's switch back to the Packers. Who do you think on this team is kind of the guy that you just want to see? You're interested in early in this season. Like, who's the guy you're looking for?
Oh man, that's a great question. And I saw the run of show early, looking at it, that question, thinking about it. It was like a couple players popped out of mine. Popped in my brain. I don't want to say just because it's his time, Jordan Love. I want to see him do what he's going to do. Good or bad. It's good or bad. I want him to be successful, but I just want to see him do something. And because we already know it's going to be that moment. He's going to have a good game or he's going to have a good play. Then he's going to have a bad play.
Yep.
I want to see how he comes back from that stuff. That's all. I want to see that. And I want to see it if it happens a few times, which it's going to. And that it's the same effect. When he has a bad moment, he comes down, throws a touchdown, or he makes a big play the next game, stuff like that. I just want to see what he does throughout the year. I'm going to keep an eye on him the whole season.
And is he that's what
we're going to find out, right?
Is he a manager? Is he a gunslinger? We really don't know. And we never really get a chance to see his personality until he's like, Brett was so unique because when Brett came into the game, they're like, hey, guess what I do? I throw it for 70 yards I let it rip.
Yeah.
But most guys aren't like that. Most guys are like, I'm going to show you a little bit what I got from a talent standpoint, but I'm going to play within the coach's system until I become the guy, and then it's going to become my system. That's kind of what Aaron did.
Yeah.
But, guys like Brett from the jump are like, no, we're ripping. Like Holmgren's on the sideline, like tearing his hair out, mustache hairs flying everywhere because he's so angry all the time.
God damn it. What did you call?
They're trying to rein him in a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see. The guy that I think offensive line-wise, the right tackle position is open. We talked about it last year. Zach Thomas is one of the best kind of athletes to come into that room in a long time, maybe since Bakhtiari. Elton Jenkins, that's not fair. Jenkins is a great athlete too.
Correct.
But he's just he's kind of a unique guy. He runs the sub-5. He came in at 6'5", 295 pounds, moves well, but needs to put on some weight. Well, he put on some weight.
Yeah.
He gained 15 pounds. Like, now, is it good weight? We'll have to see. How do you feel? How do you really move at that position? Is this offense putting you in a position where you don't have to get off the line of scrimmage that fast? Like, maybe you only have 6 plays a game that are like legitimate 1-on-1, 7-step, 5-step drop, pass protection versus all the play action, all the 3-step, all the quick screens, all the all the other stuff that makes this offense really user friendly for an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
But at 315, assuming he can keep that level of athleticism and he's got another year under his belt, like, we've had a lot of good Mark Tauscher, Brian Balaga. We've had a lot of good right tackles, and we could just be another long line of kind of legacy right tackles. I mean, you think about the Green Bay Packers, that really the offensive line across the board, they've just had some dogs for the last 30 years. I mean, starting with like Aaron Taylor back at left guard. You know what I mean?
I remember AT.
Yeah. I mean, we had Rich Moran, Aaron Taylor, Ross, myself. I mean, Joey. Charles. All these guys.
Chad on the other side. Yeah.
They got rid of Marco and I. It took a minute, but then all of a sudden, like, TJ Lang and Josh Shitton show up, and it's these guys are really. I mean, those guys were amazing football players. And so they've always just done so well at that position. And they've kind of been looking for a guy since Balaga left. And so it's it's year 2, year 3 away from him. Okay, can we get that guy? Can we stick with it? I thought Billy Turner was good enough to keep. They didn't. So now it's like, okay, we're 3-4 years out of here. out of Balaga, they need to get a guy who's going to be the next 7-year right tackle for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, because that alleviates a lot of stress. I mean, because that position demands so much, and when you find that pillar, and that pillar not moving, not going anywhere, does their job week in, week out, year over year, then it becomes easier to then fit out the rest of the offense. When you need other positions, and then also money wise, it helps to cap out too. Because when you got that one person, you keep them satisfied, and then they're doing their job. Then everything else is basically, I say, fluent around the facility.
The other guy I want to really see is Devontae Wyatt. Excuse me, Devontae Wyatt. I think. And maybe it's Devontae. Who's it going to be? Is Wyatt going to step up, or is TJ Slayton going to take that spot?
Right.
Because if it's probably a toss up going into camp, right? I mean, you're going to go. The Georgia first round draft pick is probably got the inside track just because of who he is and where he got drafted. But TJ did some good things last year. Certainly, he's a young player that can continue to grow and improve in this defense. And Devontae was so far away from being an every down player, even midway through the year, that I don't know if you can make that kind of leap. And so it'll just be interesting to see what kind of leap that, can he play it with a lower pad level? Can he be a more refined run defender and be a little bit more physical at the line of scrimmage? We know he's got the explosiveness in the pass game. We know I thought they didn't do a good job. They could have done a better job of taking advantage of kind of his skill set more often than not, especially against some young guards, even in our division, especially out of Minnesota Vikings. Could have done a better job, like taking advantage of what you're good at and building that confidence, like they did for Quay Walker, blitzing him a little bit more towards the end of the season, getting him into kind of a, hey, here, go downhill and make plays. But they didn't. And so we're kind of waiting to scratch our heads and see who's that guy's going to free up Kenny Clark a little bit more.
Yeah. And I'll say another one since you did too. I'll go with Quay Walker. And my biggest thing there is just has he matured, from learning the offense or learning the defense, being the player that he should be, but then some of the dumb errors he had later that he had during his season, last year. So, those, late in the season, he had the personal foul one where he pushed the one coach, and just has he paid attention to that and get better, and then have that ability. I think I mentioned this a couple shows ago before break, that he has that his ability then matches up with his on-field awareness, intelligence, and coaching wise all comes together. And then it has a year where he's again, there's another growing year for him, but a better one than it was kind of up and down, kind of this, I say, plateaued because of everything else that was going on when he started doing the crazy plays out of the, penalty flag, stuff like that. So
there's, you know what he looked like last year? He just looked like a really good athlete that had, like, to your word, using your word, he kind of plateaued because he didn't have the technical skill set, or maybe the not, I don't want to say football intelligence, but the intelligence, the scheme intelligence to really excel given what he was being asked to do. So he was maxing out on his physical ability, but when that other part of the game kicks in, it slows down, he'll be great. Let's talk about this, AG. Sean Payton comes out.
Yeah.
And I think we just got to say a couple words on it. I mean, Sean Payton comes out and just listen. I don't think anything that Sean Payton does is not premeditated. He just doesn't, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's just going to say that off the hip, even though he did work for Fox last year or whatever. So he goes out and bashes Nathaniel Hackett and the job that they did, and the poor coaching job and the culture. And you sit there and you go, it was just so out of character not for Sean Payton, but for an NFL head coach to talk about another NFL program. It just, it just didn't make sense. Another coaching staff. It just didn't make any sense. And then Aaron being Aaron said, listen, don't talk, keep our name out your mouth. And I know that Robert Salas, came out and said, if you're not getting complained about or whatever it was, someone's not talking trash about you, you're not doing your job. And he's going to let, Sean Payton do his thing. We'll deal with it on the field. I thought it was, if he was a commentator and you say it, you go, yeah, you're right. It was. When you're in that job and you're literally at that building and are you trying to protect Russ? All right. Like, what are you trying to do? Because obviously they're not going to be as bad as they were. Like, I think we can all just guess that they're not going to be that bad. So what do you do? There's no benefit for you to say anything. It's a lose-lose, right? You're going to be better. If you're even near the same, what are people going to say? I just don't understand the benefit of opening your mouth at all.
Yeah. It's the world of trash talking. Something I learned a long time ago. You don't do. And it's surprising to me too to hear Sean Payton, say what he said, and I love the fact that Aaron, did what he did, and there's no surprise, being that that's his coach then and now. And I think it sends a message to everybody, not just coaches or just whoever. It sends a message to everybody. It's like, look, this job is already hard enough. You got everybody else. When I say everybody else, you got other people. You got people at Fox, NFL Network, CBS Sports, commenting on every player, every coach, every GM, every day, negatively, positively, and now you got somebody within your own sector, your own peer, now is going to throw shots at you. It's like, you should have thought more about it. You would think so. Like you said, Sean, a lot of stuff he does is premeditated, which I haven't watched enough of his press conferences yet to know that, or I haven't really been around.
Well, just think about how there's a reason he left the Saints, right? Like he's not going to put himself in a situation where he doesn't think he can do well. He's not going to stick around in a situation where he doesn't think he's going to do well.
Yeah,
and you don't fault him for it. Like, he's strategic. He's not. He's a smart guy. He's a great coach. He's a smart guy.
I know. He's definitely smart.
Yeah, to your point, it's like if you're a coach that's just going to go out there and just say whatever you want, anyways, then great. If that's your personality,
everybody expects that.
But if you're jumping ship and you just saw what I don't even know what his deal is. It had to be a monster deal to get him off the booth.
100%.
But to do that and then to just start taking shots at the last guy, I think he'll probably look back on that one and go,
I shouldn't have said that. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look or sound good, because he is sitting in a position where, like I said, he's coming off a year where he's in the booth. He was in the suit all year. And unless they must have crossed paths somewhere behind the scene years ago, that's probably why he said it. I don't know, just putting it out there. But yeah, it's no place for it. Pretty much. It's trash talking, so just don't let it come back and bite you in the ass. That's all I say.
Jim Irsay is now talking about how
I saw this one
Jim
too. This is crazy.
Jim Irsay. So for those who don't know,
who's interesting anyway, by the way, he's very interesting. Very interesting GM.
He's Robert Irsay, his father had he had built a huge fortune in HVAC, heating and cooling systems.
Nice.
And at some point he bought, I want to say, the Los Angeles Rams. I think that was the team he bought. Somebody owned the Colts and blah 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 blah. But so Jim Irsay worked his his balls off to inherit this team from his dad, and this massive fortune and everything from his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of running it in a manner that respects the values, I think, of team culture, National Football League, all the things that locker room, hey, this guy's our locker room leader for the last 2-3 years. He's our offense. He's everything to us.
Yes.
Oh, and now not only, I understand the economics of running back. We've kind of gone through that already.
Yeah.
But to get on Twitter and to start saying we might do a non-football related injury for Jonathan Taylor, because Jonathan Taylor wasn't like me, he wasn't snowboarding in the offseason, right? Or like doing some stupid stuff. He was potentially strained his back lifting weights when he was off football to get ready for football. And Jim Irsay comes on Twitter and goes, "Oh, we might put him on the NFI for his back." It's like, oh, so you're saying now that you don't want your players to work out, right? I mean, like, there's so many layers of stupidity.
Got it.
There's so many layers of like, what, dude? Get off Twitter, bro. Like, you inherited $4 billion. I'm sure you grew some of it yourself. I'm not saying, like, you're a better man than me,
right,
but holy hell, man! Like, just know your role. Like, be an owner.
Yeah,
the best owners in the world. You rarely know who they are, right?
Exactly.
Write a check, enjoy it, go sit in your booth, leave us alone.
Yeah. I mean, this is a learning lesson on coaching, what not to do, and being an owner, what not to do. This is this week for sure. It is like, and he's always been the kind of the hot fire, ready to say some hot headline, out there, along with his dad. I think I remember way back in the day, if it was his dad, when Marshall Faulk got drafted, drafted, and Grease Hair, I can't think of his name right now. I'll say Grease Hair. Was mad because the Colts didn't need a running back when they drafted Marshall Faulk.
Yeah.
And he went off on him. I can't think of his name right now. Glasses, Mel Kiper. That's what it is.
Mel Kiper. Yeah, well,
when Mel Kiper said that,
and And then that was Irsay. Yeah,
that was Irsay's dad. So it's just like,
well, see, for some reason I'm good with that because what the fuck?
No, I'm good with that.
Mel Kiper doesn't know damn thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm good with that. My point is, it's the temper,
the natural reaction.
The natural reaction, like, oh, I'm pissed. Oh, you gonna fire me? But what he has to learn is social media, even though it's there for business, it's not there for this. This is where you fall down that rabbit hole of, oh God, what did I just do? I just broke the internet for the wrong reasons. You don't want that as an owner. Please don't. Coach, player, maybe off-season stuff for the player, yes, maybe, but not the owner.
Let me ask you this, AG. You're biased because you're running back, but I'm biased because I like running backs. So the top paid running back, I think, is Derrick Henry, $16 million, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
The cap, the franchise tag is somewhere. Let's just say it's like 10.5, 10.3.
Is
it 10? Okay, so it's just 10.
It's 10 on the buttons.
Okay, so let's say that. So the difference between obviously 10 and 16 is pretty sizable, 60% increase in pay.
Yeah.
If there's a handful of guys in the league, and unfortunately, I don't think I never thought Ezekiel Elliott was one of them. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys did. I didn't, because they have they got a star-studded offensive line. They had other guys that proven they could do it, et cetera, et cetera. But you do have a handful of guys. You have a Derrick Henry. You have, I think, for me, a Christian McCaffrey. I think you have a Nick Chubb, and you have a Jonathan Taylor. So, and I don't know if there's another guy in that conversation, you know more than I do, that is at like the elite level.
No, Saquon.
Sorry. Okay. So 5 guys, including Saquon, that are different. They're just different than they're different than they're better than every other damn running back. Mm-hmm. For those elite guys, and this probably goes for all positions, but because we're talking about the 60% difference, for those elite guys, like whether you like it or not, whether it's good business or not, whether you think you're going to win the Super Bowl with the guy or not, like the Colts aren't winning the Super Bowl. So if you want to have a good team, if you want to have a team that can compete and go to the playoffs and make your fan base happy, because you ain't winning the Super Bowl right now. I don't think, nobody's picking them. I mean, I could make a lot of money right now if the Colts win the Super Bowl, I'd go pick them.
All right.
You got to pay guys who are elite players at any position. You got an elite punter, pay him.
On your team.
You got an elite cornerback, pay him. You got an elite guard or running back, pay them.
Yes.
Because you're just not that many around. When I was playing guard, I thought I was a really good guard. I knew Steve Hutchinson. Like I could count on 1 or 2 fingers guys I thought were better than me.
Yeah, that was
Steve Hutchinson was better than me. And if whatever he was going to pay, like when I got paid, I saw him 3 days later. He's like, "Wait till see what I do next year." I go, "Handshake," because you're the best guy in the league. There ain't no doubt about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's guys that you just got to, in my opinion, you got to put away the analytics and you got to go, we got to pay this guy what he's worth to our franchise, not what he's worth on the sheet of paper that says, the last guy took a bad deal. I just don't. It's Derrick Henry is making $16 million. If you're telling me Jonathan Taylor is not as valuable as Derrick Henry to his team, no. I just don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's a head scratcher. That is a head scratcher. And where I hear it, what I see it as, the team, the GM also are like overthinking things, and they're probably falling into this whole the devaluing of the running back as we see it today, and it's not fair. I believe it's not fair. And regardless, if I was a linebacker, I'd be like, this is terrible, because
if he's that quality of player,
correct. Right? Since he's got in Indianapolis, he's been top 15, top 20 running back.
Okay, let's do this, AG.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tony Pollard's a good player. He's not as valuable to his team as Jonathan Taylor.
No.
They're both franchise tagged. Tony Pollard signs his tender.
Correct.
What do you say to Tony Pollard? Let's say you get him in a room together and you go, hey, listen, here's the deal, Tony. I know you think you're as good as he is. We don't, and nobody else does. So what? And I think Tony Ball's a great player. I'm not saying anything bad about him.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Taylor's a different guy.
What
do you say when they say we're going to pay Jonathan Taylor this, but you're not worth it, and I don't care? How do we fix that problem?
Hey, who's fixing the problem?
Well, listen. I mean, it's just like in the NBA, they maxed out the salary, and then, but like, who's like the highest paid player in the league is not who you think it is.
No,
you know what I mean. And so the same thing. And like, if you go and look at Barcelona Football Club right now, the top paid player this year is Frankie De Jong. Frankie De Jong's a great player. He's not the best player on the team.
Correct.
And you know what I'm saying. He's making a lot more than the next guy by like $10 million a season. And so my point to this is, it's a hard. The NFL is hard in that there's so many positions.
Yeah.
And you have to put priority on defensive end, defensive cornerback, left tackle, and quarterback. That's just been the way. That's how you build through the draft. And then blah blah blah. Everybody else is important, but okay. I don't know how to say if my best player on my team is Saquon Barkley, Saquon should be making the most money. Well, we got to pay Daniel Jones the most money. The second most money. Well, we got to Eli. We got to play another cornerback or somebody.
No, you make it a priority.
At what point do you go, shoot, I got to make him like the second. He's got to be a top 3 guy on my team because he's the number 1 guy.
Is at the point when if you don't have that guy on your roster, that team's not going to move. That's the point.
Yeah.
When you say, if I subtract him from the game day roster for 17 games, I know in my gut it's a problem. So you know what? Okay, insert him. What we got in the cap? Okay, let's do the math. Let's make the number that's gonna make him happy. That's the point. I got it now. I processed through that.
Here's what I think they should do because you're right, but they won't. They obviously wouldn't do that because it doesn't help them. Right?
Yeah, because sometimes it's the simplest things, and we already know how that goes
Here's what I think they should do. They do this in the MLS. If you bring over Lionel Messi of the MLS,
okay,
you have a designated player award. You award that person the designated player. They count for $612,250 or something like that against the cap, and you can pay them whatever you want. And so in my opinion, each NFL team should have 1, maybe 2 designated player awards that they can give a player for the life of that contract, not a year, for the life of that contract.
Yeah,
if it's a quarterback, and they just say, this is going to count X amount of dollars. Maybe it's the franchise tag number in the case of the running back. Maybe it counts $10 million. But we're going to pay this guy whatever we think he's worth, and we're going to pay him $10 million for selling PSLs. We're going to whatever it is.
Right.
But we're gonna figure out a way to make this right.
I like that.
I think that owners, I think not every owner, but I think a lot of owners would go for that.
Yes.
And I think the NFLPA would go, we're starting to do something that makes sense.
Yes, because they're not in a lot of ways. But yeah, that would solidify, again, going back to the stress level go down, because there's one guy on that team, on every team, that they know they got locked in, they're happy, and they're going to be in their uniform that they own, or GM, or whatever.
Who would it be on the Packers? Who's the designated player on the Packers?
Ooh, great question.
I think it's only one guy. I think it's easy. I think it's only one guy, but I might be wrong. You tell me.
Hold on, let me look at the roster here. Oh, what the one guy?
Who's the one guy? Who's the one guy on your team you literally cannot lose?
Oh, right now, Kenny Clark. On the
Jair Alexander.
I knew it was defense. It was defense because those were the best players right now.
Kenny's great, but like Jair Alexander.
Yeah, I guess yes.
Last year to me proved that it was like, I don't care what he wants, you just got to give it to him because he's so much better than anybody else they have. Like Kenny's really, really good. It's probably an apples to apples conversation.
Yeah, with them too, in terms of their influence on the defense. Yeah.
They're just, but you see Kenny Clark, and I go, well, Rashawn Gary's better than Kenny Clark when he's healthy. To me, like he's a scary dude, right? You know what I mean? And maybe in a different way, but they're as effective. There's just,
Zaire, he does got that extra thing. extra thing.
I think back in the day it might have been Bakhtiari, before the injuries and everything. But yeah, it'd probably be an interesting exercise because you're not necessarily freeing up cap space because you still have to charge something like a franchise worth or something. But you just go, here's a little extra for being really good.
Yeah, there you go.
I got one for you. I got two on there, but I really want to talk about this one. Get off my lawn, AJ.
I've seen
if
the
you
first
got one,
one,
you let me rip. But this first one. Okay, so I'm
like, what the?
I'm sitting in San Diego.
Okay.
So San Diego is in many ways is paradise. The weather's always nice.
Yep. Always
the ocean's
72.
gorgeous.
Always
the ocean's gorgeous. It smells great. They have more Mexicatessens than you can throw a stick at. I'm eating good every single night. Everything you eat is delicious. But about 5 years ago, the little bird electric scooter showed up in San Diego. And when I say showed up, there were all of a sudden like 50,000 of them, and they're thrown on the side of the street. They're in the bushes. There's kids of all ages running over pedestrians, getting hit by cars, running through stoplights. And they've tried to put a crackdown on it. It's really bad down in the Pacific. It's like, it really is an old guy, get off my lawn. I hate you people. I hope every one of you get hit by a car, right? Now, the new thing out there is these electric bikes. All the kids, and let's preface this with, we're talking about San Diego, California, especially around the coast. There's not just a ton of poverty there. Like, kids are doing all right. We're talking about upper middle class to upper class, kids.
And these bikes ain't cheap.
$3,500 a bike, I was told.
Ooh, I'm looking at.
I haven't checked that.
The range is from 1,000 to 6,500.
Yeah, and some of them go up to 70 miles an hour, and these kids are riding them on the street, or they're just literally picking dudes off on the sidewalk. But we got these little groups of like little, their parents are like corporate lawyers, and they're trying to be like little gangster skater kids. And there's like a group of four, and they're just they're rolling around on these things, running through stop signs, banging on the side of people's cars. And I just, I was sitting with my parents who were living in Vegas, and we're sitting with their friends, and they're literally harassing everybody. And my dad's just like, just tell me, like, sit down, like, because I'm going to go break their bikes. I used to be from California. I'm from Texas now. Like, we do not roll like that in Texas. These guys wouldn't make it down my street in Texas.
Right? No.
Okay.
Hey, no.
But these little electric bike riding little assholes. I have not seen such poor behavior. I have not seen such poor behavior. I felt so old,
really,
because they were so misbehaved. They were literally just rolling in a stop in like a four-way like this, so nobody could go.
And
nobody get out of the car and do nothing, because
they sound like the Warriors from that old movie.
They were like the Warriors if your kid's sister could beat the shit out of all of them. That's what they're like. You know what I mean? They're terrible humans. I don't wish death on children, but if a car would have hit a couple of these kids, I would have been all right with it. I know that's terrible to say. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
The car could shake them. That's all I need. I need a good shanking. Oh, man. Oh, I didn't know this was the case. I've seen these bikes. I know these bikes very well. They're all over Lincoln, too, and parts of Green Bay. I see guys rolling on them. I didn't know
it's not that they're a bad deal. It's just like,
so they didn't.
I don't know how. You can't ride on the sidewalk because you're too fast.
Correct.
You can't ride on the street because you're 13 and you don't have a damn license. Like, you can't ride it because it goes 70 miles an hour.
And you already got a problem where the youth of today, they already think they are, regardless if they're actually privileged or not privileged, but they think they
entitled
are.
As hell.
Entitled as hell. Right. It's like, but I'm gonna throat punch you real quick and let me set you down and give you a conversation about being a gangster. I like, this ain't gangsterism. This is harassment. You're harassing people. What is going on? Parents?
AG, I wish, like, it's seriously one of those times where, in your mind, I'm 46 now, and I'll be honest with you, I probably could. It would have been fun to see what would have happened against four of those little punks.
Oh, they ain't want that smoke.
But you just get so, like, you just feel, because if you feel old, you're like, God, was I like that? Like, I was never that bad.
No, I know I wasn't that bad.
I've never just generally hated children like I hated these kids.
That is funny to see. I haven't been to Cali in a while, and when I see that for the first time, I'm gonna be like, this is what Mike was talking about. They acting wow. Really? Oh man, I'm about to go to YouTube. I know it's something on YouTube about it. I'm gonna check out YouTube.
Oh, it's a problem. I mean, they're going to they call the cops. Anyways, it was just an eye opener because you're sitting out there, you're enjoying yourself, and then all you hear is like, they're mouthing off to old people, and some of it, some of it's
that's definitely.
You feel like you're watching a movie or something. And you're like, God, you guys actually never go home. You know what I mean?
It almost sounds like the Karate Kid crew.
Johnny was way cooler. Johnny knew karate.
Exactly. Right? At least he knew karate, right?
Yeah, I mean, they had something to offer. I stand by this with the Karate Kid. If you recall, Daniel LaRusso was the one who intervened the first time. Johnny might not have been a great person, but I don't know if he was at fault the first time. He told me, hey, I told you to leave it alone, kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did warn him. He did give him a warning. And that's what, but these kids, they might have to get get a lesson taught. That's all I would say. So, yeah, get off my lawn with that one. Hey, Mike, good show as usual. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, AmonGreen30, and check out the Gamers Lounge on TikTok and YouTube and Twitch. Amon Green's Gamers Lounge. You can check me out on there. And Mike, let everybody know where they can find you on social.
Mike Wall 68 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. Guys, check out this show on my block on /Process to Perform on YouTube. Check us out on anywhere you get your podcast. Thanks again to our sponsor, Believe. AG, you don't say you're going live on Twitch, aren't you? What days are you going live?
Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. There we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. We'll be doing 2 shows a week here with the season starts, but for now, you just get to see us once a week. So, see you later.